For me, a fully fermented cider is a cider that's going to be most expressive, most individual, and particularly the most important point is that it's going to be the way to have the most understanding of what that apple gives you.
Hello, my name is Ria Wincaller, and I am the producer and cider MC of this weekly podcast, where we speak with makers, cider enthusiasts, and folks within the cider trade from around the world.
Hip, hip, hooray!
Bringing us into episode 443 of A Cider Chat, we heard from Albert Johnson talking about how he sees a fully fermented cider. In this case, he is talking about the expression of a fully fermented cider of a single varietal apple, and how that really shows you what that apple can do. And dang, if he doesn't know it, kind of like best of all, because Ross on Wye Cider and Perry Company, as the title of this here episode states, is, in my mind, cider's single varietal capital. Because when you're talking about 79 to 89, depending on any given day, of ciders to choose from that are expressions of one single apple, my goodness, I mean, I don't know anyone else out there in the world doing that, truly. And they're just having so much fun. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't do blends, but it's not the kind of blends that we'll see at other cideries where there's a whole bunch of different apples being added to it. Sometimes you'll have like 14 different varieties of a blend for that one single cider. In this case, Ross on Wye, and the full name is Ross on Wye Cider and Perry Company. It's a long name. Some people just kind of refer to it as Ross Cider. But, you know, you don't want to leave out the Perry, because Perrys are really important there, too. As always, certainly here at Cider Chat, too. I'll keep that under the hood. But anyways, you know, what they are looking at there is how to showcase those apples that they have, because they have a magnificent orchards, I say, like little orchards here and there, all located at this family farm called Broom Farm. And it's magnificent. I was there in October. This was a sit-down with Albert. It was all part of my recon for the upcoming 2025 Totally Cider Tour UK edition, which is rolling out in August. And yes, we are going to Broom Farm. We're going to be spending time at the Ross Cider Fest that's taking place. And I'll tell you, you know, if you're in the cider world at all, you probably have heard about the Ross Cider Fest. Many friends I know have been able to go there. I shouldn't say many. Actually, a lot of people want to go. But, you know, I see some of the same faces going there every year. I have been to the Ross Cider Fest. That was kind of like a last-minute decision. I was in the middle of doing a lot of caretaking for my mom, and I couldn't really make plans going out. But I got a lot of family support, and they said, Rhea, just go. And I went, and it was kind of like a decision I made the week before, and was able to camp out in the orchard. You know, as always, Albert is the epitome of a host. He is truly a publican in all senses of the word. His father, Mike Johnson, and his brother, Martin, I just adore. Oh, my God. You know, these are all like, you know, you want to squeeze their cheeks, but they're big guys, so I don't do that. But, you know, Mike, I can't say enough about this family that's growing. Albert's now a father, has a daughter, Freya, and, yeah, it's just wonderful. There's so many other characters here. In fact, you're going to be hearing from some of those other folks there. We do have an upcoming episode with John the cider maker. Bob, who was on hand, was helping me kind of like find out about some of the castles in the area and some of the ruins, because I always like to add that on to a cider tour. And of course, I got to stay on site at the B&B. He's going to be talking about that. That's right next to the whole production area. I'd get up in the morning, I'd go over, and you'll be looking at some of the photos. If you go to the show notes for this episode, you'll be able to see the actual apples being crushed and whatnot. And that B&B has been hosted by his aunt Hillary, who does this unbelievable breakfast in the morning. I felt it was like a high tea breakfast in the morning. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. And, you know, you're in this kind of vaulted ceiling room, and there's all this dishes and plateware, and it's just laid out as if I was the queen herself. But wow, yeah. So a lot of love for that place. And so we're going to be catching up with that, hearing what's going on in essentially a cidery that's like a village, because they have Broom Farm, the production facility where they're making all the ciders, and they have the different apple orchards. And then up by this main street is the Yew Tree pub. And that is managed by Martin, who is Albert's younger brother. And they have ciders on tap. They make pizza. And they've really done a makeover since I was there. I guess I was there in 2018, if I recall correctly. And yeah, it's just a really nice place. And Martin, he's just the sweetest guy. I just love that. I love this family. I can't say enough about them. And they've been really long time supporters of Cider Chat. So yeah, it is just so easy to talk about this place for all of those reasons. I didn't even mention Becky. There's just many folks. And when I was there in October, there were even more folks on site, because later that same week was the funeral for Susanna Forbes of Little Pomona. And, she was such a beacon of hope and kindness, and just a incredible spokesperson for cider. People really came out in droves, and yeah. So we'll kind of get to all that as we go along here. But, yeah, Ross. Who doesn't love Ross? I know people listening right there in Ciderville right now, you're like nodding your head. Yeah, pretty stinking amazing in all the best ways possible. So we're going to be having that featured conversation with Albert. I also want to say we are going to be going to the Ross Cider Fest as part of the 2025 Totally Cider Tour UK edition. I'm laughing because I just kind of can't believe it. And I've been in the midst of all that kind of planning and rolling out the Totally Cider Tour. I'm really excited to be there on site with friends from the tour. We'll be able to go down into the different places, have food, and they have a big barn where you could buy product, and you're getting cider out of barrels, and it's out in the orchard, and just seeing a lot of familiar faces, meeting new faces, and yeah, it's like coming home. So I think you're in for a treat, and I'm kind of, I'm like over the top for it, but that's okay, because this is how it inspires us. Aren't we lucky to be in a niche category where we so much enjoy each other? I mean, that is absolutely incredible, isn't it? And we enjoy each other for doing amazing things in the world, like planting trees, planting fruit trees, making good quality product for others. And when somebody else succeeds, I'm really, really happy for that. And, it goes both ways. So, yeah, I was reading this poem from this woman by the name of Mary Oliver recently, and it was all about finding joy in all the little crumbs of life. Yeah, and I'm here for that. We do have some news from out and about in Ciderville, so let me roll to that next. And once again, welcome to Cider Chat. If this is new for you, this podcast in the world of cider as it is, make sure to hit the follow button wherever you are, and let's get on with this show. As many of you know out there in Ciderville, Cider Chat is listener supported. We get support via the patrons at the Cider Chat Patreon page, and also when people hit the donate button at ciderchat.com. And one of those folks who hit the donate button it's actually in December, I'm kind of catching up on things, is a woman by the name of Carrie Williams. And she is a cider maker at Snow Cap Cider, which is based in Colorado. And when that happens, I always ask people a little bit about their journey with cider and what they could tell us. Why did you hit that donate button? So she wrote that she's always followed Cider Chat, and she also has her production staff listen to Cider Chat while they're working. She has enjoyed the podcast and the passion for cider. The Cider Chat feels inclusive and informative, and listening in has helped her Carey along her own cider journey as a farmer's wife turned cider maker and woman-led business owner. The promotion of cider is always an endeavor I am happy to support. Yeah, I like it. All right, well, if you want to hit that donate button at ciderchat.com, just go to the page, any page, and you probably see it right up there on the little sidebar. Or perhaps you'd like to become a patron of Cider Chat by joining the Cider Chat Patreon page. In fact, just today, right before I started talking to all you out there in Ciderville, I posted a bonus audio clip from a walkabout with Sam Leach of Wilding Cider. This is a Somerset cidery. We had them back on episode 441, so just a couple of episodes ago. And they have a beautiful home orchard there, and you could just tell this guy is just so deep into it. And the cool thing about that actual walkabout is it was getting a little dark out. We're walking down the hill, and out of nowhere was these big wings that, like, whoa, what was that? It was a giant owl passing by. Well, it actually had been sitting in an apple tree, and I guess we didn't notice it, and it spooked us, and we spooked it, and yeah. So that's a little audio snapshot. You can find that, just some of the things that we put up there for the patrons at Cider Chat.
Walking through the orchards.
And we have some big news coming in from the American Cider Association. This was announced just last week. And let's face it, it's been a really long weekend. You may have missed this email. So I want you to know that our dear Michelle McGrath, who has been the CEO for the past 8 years, has moved on. Do check out her episodes, just a couple episodes back. She talks about that, talks about upcoming CiderCon taking place in Chicago in just less than 2 weeks. Well, her new replacement is now on board, and her name is Monica Cohen, which is kind of interesting because, the CEO before Michelle, his name was James Cohen. I don't think they're related at all. He's based out in the Pacific Northwest. I'm not really sure where Monica's based at. But anyways, you're going to be able to get to meet her if you're going to CiderCon. I'm super stoked because she comes from the Dairy Farmers of America. I don't know if she was formerly an executive officer there at some level, what they would call a C-suite executive. That's anybody with a C in front of their name, like chief executive officer, chief financial officer, chief operating officer. That's C-suite executives. Yeah, she's coming on board, and she was working with the dairy farmers. So maybe she, that kind of that just brings me into the relationship of traveling about in Normandy or in the United Kingdom and seeing animals out in the orchard, and how that balance of, specifically when I think Normandy, of all the cows out in the orchard, that's a certain kind of terroir level that we don't really see here in the U.S. And I don't know what the hurdles are about that. That's kind of a rabbit hole I haven't fully gone down to, but boy, she's going to have some good connections, and I think it's definitely sounds like a win for the ACA. So really excited to meet Monica, and that's going to be coming up in Chicago, CiderCon. That's February 4th through the 7th. If you haven't registered yet, make sure you use that promo code CiderChat, all one word, and the 2 C's are capital. So we have CiderCon, and simultaneously we have Chicago Cider Week taking place throughout the city, all these different events at the same time that CiderCon events are happening. So you're going to have to pick and choose, and I'll leave that to you. So there's some cool events. We're going to have links in the show notes to Chicago Cider Week and also Chicago Cider Summit. That takes place on February 8th at the Navy Pier. It's a wonderful cider festival. And the main guy behind it, his name is Alan Shapiro, and he does an outstanding job. So, yeah, Chicago, here we come. We'll be arriving there quite quickly, it looks like. The days are just ticking off. I cannot wait to see everybody there and learn a lot about Chile, which is the featured country at CiderCon. And do know, just around the hotel, there's not really great grocery stores per se. You got to walk further afield. There's a good hot dog place. And, of course, you get that deep dish pizza. But it's not the best kind of place if you want to get those little sneaky snacks. So throw some in your suitcase so you have some snacks when you're at the hotel. Throw in some ramen or something. I always do that. Just heat the water in my room and pour in the cup and let it sit a little bit longer. And you have a nice little bowl of ramen to, hold you over. I'm being a little bit of a mother goose, but I can't help myself. You got to get really prepared for these conferences. You want to have fun and keep yourself healthy. That's what it's all about. And now you know there's a reason why I lead Totally Cider Tours, and which leads me to that next piece here. Let me just take a pause, and I'll talk about that shortly.
Dancing in the street.
I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't dancing in the streets on this upcoming Totally Cider Tour UK edition that's going to be taking place this August. And if you know what I'm talking about, part of Cider Chat, what we do is we offer Totally Cider Tours, and I lead the tours. And we're going to the United Kingdom. We're going to be in Somerset, Gloucestershire, Herefordshire, and a little bit in Wales too. Kind of cruising through and getting a taste of the landscape and, of course, a taste of Cider and Perry. Super stoked about that. We're going to be going to the National Perry Pear Center. We're going to be having a talk by Phil, who is the guy behind 99 Pines. He does small batch Perry. He's going to open up the Pear Center for us there. It's a National Perry Pear Center, and there's an orchard. Oh, we're going to have lunch. I'm just so excited about I've been having a blast setting up this tour. I want to say that. I really love being able to showcase regions and spotlight the producers there and get folks jazzed up to have an understanding of that region that they maybe might otherwise not go to. Sometimes it can be super daunting to go to the UK, believe me. As somebody who's used to driving on one side of the street and then having to go on the other side, I think at some point I'm going to be putting out the reel of me just saying left, 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 left. That was my mantra every time I got into the car in the morning. Anywho, if you want to know more about Totally Cider Tours, go to the page at ciderchat.com. Always a great idea to send your name this way to get on the wait list, either for this tour or for upcoming tours, whether it is the UK or France, and who knows where we'll be going next. And yeah, get your name on it, because for this tour, there's only so many people that we can take. We're keeping it at a certain size. And I fear that it's going to be selling out sooner than later. And I don't know, maybe I'll have to do a second week or something. But we don't want to miss the Ross Cider Fest. All right. And that's where we're going to go next. We're going to go to our conversation with Albert Johnson. And in this chat, you're going to be hearing a little bit about the accommodations, what's been scaling up at the farm. You're going to be hearing about cider offerings. We're going to talk about dry cider and kind of the particularities of a single varietal. You heard a little bit about that already, but we're going to get into it. Some of the events and festivals, because it's not just the Ross Cider Fest, and also cider pairings and talking about that with food, and challenges of social media and advertising for your cider, what he has been doing to address that marketing piece, which is so important. Making this a very good time now to grab a glass and join this chat with Albert Johnson of Ross on Wye Cider and Perry Company, based in Ross on Wye in the UK.
And things are always evolving here, day by day, month by month. We're a small family farm, so we're just iterating on what we're doing, and we're investing where we can. So our latest iteration is really just everything that we had been doing quietly and maybe not as finessed, and without being as proud about the cider we were making and how you could come and enjoy yourself by drinking it and the other experiences. We've brought everything together. So we make a huge range of cider here on the farm, and that's the core of it. But then how do you access that cider? So we welcome visitors through many different ways. We have an orchard campsite that's open through the summer, that's very welcoming to families, and it's in this beautiful, quiet countryside setting amongst the trees in our traditional orchard. My auntie runs the guest house on the farm, so there's 2 accommodations for the guest house. It's bed and breakfast, incredible breakfast. And we're expanding that now because we're building 2 beautiful chalets, self-enclosed accommodation that are overlooking the valley where we are here, a beautiful view down. They're going to be ready from November, or at least that's the hope.
November 2024.
Yeah, exactly, November 24. So all go through 2025. Already some bookings and interest is coming in for those. They're going to be wonderful. And then we also have a touring caravan site at the Yew Tree. So any different way. If people want to come visit us, they can come stay.
Can you just like stop there for a minute? So because these are kind of labels that aren't necessarily familiar with everybody. So when we hear caravan, that means something that I'm not quite sure what that means.
Okay.
Traveling caravan site.
So,
is that mobile trailers come in or self-contained
Yeah,
vehicles?
like I think you call them RVs.
Yes,
but
we do.
American RVs are massive, and most of what's available in the UK is
Not
nowhere
all
near
of
that
them,
scale.
but that's okay. Yes, you're right. Yeah, They can be massive. They could be like 30 feet long just alone.
Yeah.
So UK style RVs.
But that's what it's for. It's for motorhomes, camper vans, caravan, right? You've got a hard standing pitch with an electrical hookup if you need it.
Yeah.
Very convenient, very comfortable stay, and literally it's 100 yards from the furthest pitch to the pub. If you're on the nearest pitch, it's only
That's
40
fantastic.
yards from you step out of your van, you walk into the pub, you can order a pint of
come
cider.
true, yeah.
Yeah.
But in that way, does it have to be self-contained to be able to stay up at the Yew Tree?
So what we say is if you don't have to be self-contained at all. Like if you're just staying in your vehicle, that's fine. But if you're tent camping, we
Right.
suggest the better place is to come down to the farm
Okay.
and be on the grass in the orchard.
And there's facilities for bathrooms and stuff like that.
We've got everything here.
Okay.
Showers, washing
Mm-hmm.
up area, toilets, etc.
And how much of a walk is it from like where the tent camping is to the
So
pub?
on your way to the pub, it only takes 8 minutes. But on your way home, when you're full of cider, sometimes it can take as many as 20. So it
I
depends.
wonder why. Because you're just now enjoying all the apples along the way. So at the pub itself, what are the hours like at this point, and what is offered there? Because that's also changed up a bit too.
So the Yew Tree, that's the name of our pub in Peterstowe. It's open pretty much every single day of the year from 12 noon every single day. So that's quite simple. And kind of the key things are that there's a cider shop attached to the pub. So you can come from 12 any day and browse the incredible range we have in the cider shop, because we have about 70 different ciders and perries that we've made. And we have another 25 that are guest ciders and perries. And you know, they are the best guest ciders I can get. But then after that, you know, for drinking and everything else, then that's fine. And we're doing food. So recently we refurbished the pub in January. Last time I was speaking to you on the podcast. And my team there, everybody did an amazing job to put in the effort to make the pub look amazing nowadays. And we now have new partners in the kitchen. So we have wood-fired pizza with salads, chips, sides, serving Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And that's a beautiful thing because it's so easy, it's so tasty, and also like it's really great for families. So we do have like just a really broad range of people that come out to the Yew Tree and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And we're unique because the pub is in a village in the countryside. So it's the fact that we have so many people coming and staying in all of these different ways, whether they want to stay in the bed and breakfast or camping or in their van, but they're coming from all around the place. A lot from abroad, a lot from different parts of the UK, staying for a weekend and participating in any one of our events, because we're doing so much at the pub that's exciting and interesting and not an experience that you can have elsewhere. So the most obvious one, the biggest one, is every month we have a cider club where we have a talk and tasting from a guest producer. And a lot of the times it's the first talk and tasting this guest producer has ever done, because they're an amazing new bespoke producer that I've managed to make friends with and invited them. And so it's a chance to taste some ciders or perries that are made on a really small scale but to a really high standard in a really intimate setting. And that's a beautiful thing to do. Our other big plan or schedule that we have at the Yew Tree is we have a series of festivals all through the year. So we have our major one, the Ross Cider Fest, here on the farm. But if you want to come out to the pub, then you should check it out. Our 2025 schedule for Ciderganza, which is our Easter weekend cider festival, where we have a huge range of ciders on draft. We have music, we have special food. Then we have our summertime Soiree, which is over a bank holiday, so it's a long weekend in the UK. And that's like a multi-format drinks festival. Mm-hmm. So we have a cider club, but we also, this year we had a beer tasting and a wine tasting. Previous year we had a wine tasting and a rum tasting. So we're doing really stuff that you can't find in Herefordshire, and it's really fun. And then just last week, as I'm talking to you now, we had our Ross Cider Fest. So we had a beer festival at the pub. Plus we have the Yew Tree Cider Trials, which is this beautiful open to amateurs cider competition that's peer judged. And that's a wonderful thing. If you're a small hobby cider maker, you can enter 5 liters of your product in that. There's no entry fee. You just have to donate 5 liters of your product. It's peer judged, so you're taking part in the judging with everybody else. And there's, say, 30 to 40 different cider makers there judging alongside you. You're all talking. It's a great opportunity for learning, for making friends who are also into cider making. And then all the entries, they all go on a charity bar, and we raise money for doing that. So that's a really wonderful event. That's the end of July.
End of July. Does that take place up at the Yew Tree?
Yeah, that's in the Yew Tree
here?
Garden, yeah.
All right. So kind of wrapping this all together then. So you got the caravan scene, you have the orchard camping, you have a B&B here, you have little holiday cabins that you've recently, upscaled. Yeah. It's truly like a little village here. I'm surprised that at this point you don't have like your own like little mayor, or maybe, I don't know, Albert, it seems like you're becoming the mayor here at this point. It's multi-generational, there's a lot of workers on site, and you get a lot of visitors. You currently have a visitor from Japan. You have Edwin from Plowman Cider, we know him best, a cider maker there who's, here in the UK for a bit before going back to the US. So you get a lot of visitors here. How do you like framing that into your work schedule? Because everybody wants to kind of come to Ross because it's really cool place, you're a cool guy, you got like amazing ciders, you got cool background cell phones coming in. It's truly multi-generational. So I'm just wondering, because I do see that where folks land in the UK and they beeline it up to Herefordshire to hang with you. And I imagine that's a great thing, but it's also time consuming. So what are you kind of setting your sights on, kind of managing all that? And how do you do that?
Well, it was a lot easier before I had my baby girl. That's
Yes,
definitely true.
I know, right.
Because, that changes everything. But I think the most of the people that want to come here, they know that, as you say, it's a village, and we're all hanging out. So last night we were all having dinner together in my dad's house, 8 of us, and it's chaotic and loud, and we're having cider, and that atmosphere is, to me, really joyful, when everybody is just being comfortable with each other, and we're sharing, shared values, and we have like this joy and passion for cider that brings us together and puts us in just a great mood when we're able to hang out and talk about that. So I have always loved having international visitors. I love meeting people from completely different backgrounds, but that you have this thing that unites you, and you can hang out and chat, and whether they're here because they want to learn about cider, or whether they just are stopping by and they just like cider, or anything, it's all really fun. And I hope it continues. And that's one of the things with all of the different accommodations. We're providing spaces for people to come and stop and join in this community that we have.
Mm-hmm. Your particular style of cider making is one of the reasons why they're coming here to talk to you, is like, how do you do it, Albert? You make what you want to drink. How's that working for you? Because that's the big piece in the cider world. Not everybody has that luxury to be able to do that, because the numbers say sometimes otherwise.
We make what we want to drink, and I think that's driven by the fact that the way we look at everything is that we're really privileged here on the farm, and we can have cider as a vocation, as a lifestyle, rather than, we haven't come outside and said, okay, we're starting a business, okay, it's in cider, okay, we need to make a sustainable product. More of what we're doing is being driven by this connection to the land, to the trees, and this individual fruits and varieties, and fascination by all of that. And then that translates across into making the best product you can from something that you really care about. And then even though it's not the mainstream, even though it's a little bit less simple to just put the product out and it sell, we find a way to communicate that to people. And I think making the cider that you want to make, or that you want to drink rather, it slows down your growth maybe. Maybe suddenly you're not going to start pumping out hundreds of thousands of gallons or anything like that. But you can succeed, and we are. I mean, we're making more than ever. We're making what we want to make, and making what we like. But our production has gone up and our sales have gone up, and sometimes it's a bumpy road, and you feel like this has been a slow month and that's challenging. But what really makes it work for us is because we have these direct to consumer routes for sale. because we run our events, because we have now our own online web shop, you find the people that also like what you like. And particularly if you're introducing people to your cider yourself and you're able to give it to them firsthand, and as you pass them the glass, you tell them, okay, this is not what you're used to, but let me tell you why this is special, because this variety is 200 years old, or because this variety only has 6 trees, or because this variety is the first time anyone's tried a single variety from it for ages, and it's a single variety, so it's, yeah, okay, it's not going to be the biggest complex cider, but it's going to have this really interesting, fascinating flavor. And when you can explain to someone, most people are like, okay, I'm really interested. I want to experience that. I want to taste something that I've never tasted before and that I have no frame of reference for. And I might like it, I might not like it, but it's compelling. And I want people to be interested in what they're drinking. And
Absolutely.
That drives the style of what we're producing.
Yeah. How are you luring those new drinkers to this area? Is it all on your social media channels, or is it word of mouth? Because I think you probably have a lot of people coming here already who, just adore the whole kit and caboodle that you got going on here, and that includes the ciders. But to make it any model sustainable, you have to keep on drawing in that next generation that is coming behind you,
Social media is huge for us. It always has been, has always been kind of driving our growth from way back 7 years ago to when I started in the business. And Twitter at that time was a great vehicle for conversation and for exposing the brand to new people in a way that they were interested in and compelled by. And now that kind of discussion in the UK has faded away, it's become a little bit more challenging with social media to get the feedback, to know, is my content actually engaging with people and is it convincing them to come? But we are quite lucky because our cider festival here on the Farm Ross Cider Fest, we barely advertise it. But we sold more tickets this year than ever before. We were completely at capacity this year. And so that's just coming about from our reputation. And it's kind of everything when you're a small business is holistic. So the social media helps. The other thing that has helped is I'm more willing than maybe any cider maker except Tom Oliver to travel around and give a tasting, even if it's only to 5 people. I don't mind. And so last year, for example, I did my spring tour where I visited 18 different venues that were pouring Ross on Wye and spoke to people. And a lot of the time it's because I'm a new face in different part of the country and people who are kind of interested in cider, or maybe one of them is and they brought their 3 friends along, gives you a new audience and you're talking to them directly. And that obviously, that's way more effort, way more challenging, more expensive, but also a lot more impactful than your latest post on social media. I know for a fact that there's people I spoke to on that tour, it was their first taste of Ross and Wye, and then 6 months later, they came to the Cider Festival. And then this year, same people were back at this year's Cider Festival because they'd had a great time. So what we try and do, or what I'm always thinking about when I'm thinking about the tone of the copy on our labels, or the social media graphics, or what's on our website, or even the kinds of events that we plan and that I'm interested in, is all to do with what I think people find interesting about Ross and Wye, why I think people keep coming back and drinking Ross and Wye, and maintaining that connection.
And why is that?
Well, like one of the things is that on our 750ml bottles, you've got the map of the farm, and it shows you where the apples are grown from. And so I think there's a real intimacy to drinking our cider. Partly that's because, as we said a little bit, alluded to it, it's quite distinct and quite different from something mainstream. So once you become someone that really enjoys Ross and Wye, I think a lot of people, and I love this, they become quite proud of the fact that they like Ross and Wye and they like drinking it. And even if it's not the only cider that they drink, because hopefully they do try a lot of things, but for them, coming to Ross and Wye, buying the T-shirt that says Ross and Wye on it, drinking our cider as dry and as tannic or as sharp or as barrely as it might be, that they're like, oh yeah, this is me. This is part of my identity, and Ross fits into their jigsaw of who they think they are. And then when they come here and they're hanging out with my dad, my brother, me, Becky and Freya, or Bob and John, and my auntie Hillary in the guest house, everybody, it's like they're part of the family. And so that is key to everything that we're doing.
Yeah, I could attest to that. Having been on the road now for 3 weeks and spending my 4th week here on the road, it feels like a little village. It feels very much like my own home. And so that's absolutely lovely. Is then the plan to keep on rolling out on the Gypsy Wagon with Ross in tow and doing these kinds of tastings? Because, like you said, in order to make money, you got to spend money. But now you're a dad, a beautiful daughter. Oh my goodness, I got to hold her. So amazing. But that does require a lot of effort going out into the world. And your market is primarily the UK. There's difficulties getting it exported to the US. I know US cider drinkers would love to have your product, without a doubt. So what is the future plan here to kind of keep on evolving in this very changing market where, in some ways, being here, I'm seeing a decrease in access to fine cider? And what I mean is the really easy to get industrial cider in the UK. That's what's on all the taps. But to search out those cider bars and stuff. So where's the plan? How do you maneuver that without getting essentially depressed? Because it's it feels like, God damn it, we're going backwards.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
Yeah. No, sometimes it is 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, because it comes down to sometimes you do a great thing and you have a bar that's selling a lot of cider, and then the manager leaves for some reason.
Yeah.
And then the new people come in and they
don't get it.
Well, let's not worry about that.
Yeah.
Because cider is such a niche. Yeah. Cider is, I think the national average for cider as a percentage of your bar takings in a pub is only 4%. So to try and find, or to try and encourage publicans, the landlords, etc., to devote more than 4% of their time to cider they're like, why would I? So that's a real challenge. And
especially, it seems too now that Twitter has shifted a little bit, because that's where a big conversation was happening in the UK with all the makers, all the different players here. It truly was a conversation, not something that US makers were involved in, but boy, if you wanted to know what was happening in the UK, just follow Twitter. So I could see that as a mega challenge. And it concerns me a little bit because, looking at the country overall, my hit is that, wow, cider is truly going up. Different countries are starting to rise up that never did before, that have a history, like Chile, etc. And here you have one of the highest drinking lover, of cider in the world for your country, and yet it's not fully shifting to that dry cider model, which is hard because you have 79 different ciders. How do you keep that catalog of ciders and not say, oh man, maybe we should put in a couple little sweet ones, or, a little fruit collab or something, or I don't know what. Is anything possible? Because, you kind of taking the helm here, so.
Yeah, but I don't want to chase that, and we're already busy enough. And one of the challenges is you keep growing, you have more expenses as well as more money.
This is true. Yeah.
And it's not always valuable and worthwhile. And we're in the middle right now, probably about halfway through our first full top working of an entire orchard. So we're changing 2,500 Harry Masters trees into 64 different rows of each one a new variety. So that's going to give us a huge new palette of apples to play with. And the plan, as I talk about it right now, is that that's going to be 64 new single variety ciders. I mean, they won't all be on every year, so it won't be like that every year. And I was thinking this morning, after we talked about this last night, maybe there's going to be some blends, maybe, but...
All right. Yeah. You should have seen the way his head tilted in there considering doing blends. Because you're like the single varietal dude, And there's not many in the world. I mean, there are a couple single varietals, but it's very specific apples. But you are doing the whole gamut of single varietals.
If you look at our sales ledger, you break it down by percentage. We've got one core cider called Bird Barker. And that is our everyday medium sparkling cider. That's our accessible cider that's open to the market.
Delicious, yeah.
And that's about a quarter of our sales. And then the next biggest brand is Raison, which is our totally dry, bittersweet only barrel cider. So it's a massive niche cider. But that's our next biggest seller, and that's about 10 to 12% of our sales.
And you've been doing a good job of promoting that cider, a fantastic job. It's kind of like in France, you get that little fresh young Beaujolais. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's out. I kind of see you like the French master of cider in that way for the UK with your raison d'etre. You know, it's this really coveted cider, which is a good position to be in.
I think it's one of the best achievements we've done.
Yeah.
Is we have this launch day for raison every year because it's a vintage cider.
Yeah.
And this year we had 30 venues up and down the country that were serving it on launch day. And for a craft cider, to have 30 venues with a launch day, that's unheard of. Because actually most cider makers, including me, for 99% of your products, you're too busy to arrange a launch day. You just finally remember to put it on sale and then hope people start buying.
Fantastic, yeah.
So to have that raison d'etre day is awesome, and it draws people's attention.
Right.
And it's a niche cider, so some people try it and they don't get it, but
they want to get it. See, that's the thing. They might not get it, but when there's such a jazzed up feeling about a release day, it harkens back to some of the things I've seen in the craft beer culture with some big makers where they had that release at a festival, but you're doing an actual day. So is there going to be a set day now as a yearly thing that people could look forward for?
So it's always, and this makes it sound more complicated than it really is. So it's always the Thursday after the August bank holiday, because that's the opening day of our cider festival. So it's the opening day of our cider festival.
Opening day of the cider festival is the raison d'etre day.
So the actual date changes here and there. I think next year is the 28th. This year it was the 29th of August. Next year it's the 28th of August.
So bank holiday, because those of us who don't really know what that means, what is bank holiday?
It's a public holiday day. So like is 4th of July a public holiday?
It is. It's a federal holiday, yeah.
Right, yeah. So it's like
a federal holiday.
Yeah.
Do you have a couple bank holidays?
Yeah, there's a few. So there's 2 in May. There's the August bank holiday.
Is it called the August bank holiday? Is that the name of it, the official name of it?
Yeah.
So there's always an August bank holiday, which is always...
It's the last Monday in August.
So it's the last Monday in August, and the raison d'etre day...
It's the Thursday after that Monday.
Is the Thursday after the bank holiday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little hard to do the math there for cider drinkers, but I'm with you. So you have to look at the end of August. Could it run into September?
It could be in September.
It could be in September.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be like kind of like the kickoff for Ross Cider Fest every year?
Yeah,
is that another way to look at it?
Yeah. That's funny,
Not
right?
to make it too complicated.
Yeah, but the thing, people. It is complicated because people always think, even people that have been coming to our cider festival for years, they're like, so next year it's going to be in September, right? I'm like, no, because
bank holiday is
because people are like, it's after the last weekend in August. It's like, well, no, it's after the bank holiday. Sometimes that's in August, sometimes it's in September.
I'm starting to get it now. Yeah, it's reeling in. Of course, here in the UK, I'm starting to get it, but it makes sense, which is really something to look forward to. We kind of have National Cider or International Cider Day.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I think you're the first kind of maker who's really been able to, in the world that I know, has been able to showcase a cider at that level. So kudos to you for doing that, Albert, because we need more of that.
I mean, it's still small. It's only 30 venues, but on the other hand, that's more than there's ever been. So we had 18, we had 20, 21, 30 this year. And, hopefully by doing the tastings and by staying in touch with all the venues, we can keep that relationship, and each year it can grow and grow.
Yeah, I mean it might be 30 venues, but because you do get a presence on social media, you're talking about it, and all your friends and fellow cider writers and people in the category in this area are jazzed up about it too. Yeah. It really feels like it reaches more, which just lends me to wonder when we'll be able to celebrate it here or over there in the U.S. So it's cool stuff, and I think it's a great model to do, and you have to work hard like Albert to kind of get there, which means you have to have a good product. Let's talk a little bit about dry cider, because that is your passion. For folks who don't really know what that means and why you are so passionate about it.
So whenever we at Ross are talking about dry, we're not talking about a flavor, we're talking about the technical absence of sugar. We're talking about a cider that has been fully fermented. That's why I most of the time I try not to use the word if I'm advertising on social media or something, because there's this confusion over what that means. And so I'm really just trying to dial in on the fact that for me, a fully fermented cider is a cider that's going to be most expressive, most individual, and particularly the most important point is that it's going to be the way to have the most understanding of what that apple gives you. And that's what we're fascinated by. We can make a dry, fully fermented single variety of an apple like Star Wilding. We're going to launch this Star Wilding next year. This is a variety that was written about and celebrated in the 1884 Hog and Bull Hereford Pomona and praised, but it isn't grown nowadays. And so it's just been kept alive in a few forgotten orchards and in a museum orchard, but nobody's been using it to make a commercial cider. And so if you really want to know what that apple tastes like and why did they used to celebrate it and plant it so much and make cider from it, I think the way to get the best possible understanding, the closest connection to the quality of that cider is to fully ferment it and then taste what you've got left. Because that's the whole point. That's what separates cider apple from merely a dessert fruit. Ferment out a dessert fruit because it doesn't have acidity, doesn't have tannin. There's not necessarily going to be that much flavor left.
It'll be a flabby cider.
Yeah,
it'll be dry, but it'll have
you
nothing
might be able
there.
to get some nice aromatics or something, but
Maybe,
on the palate, it's going to be thin. It's going to be quite quick. If you can ferment out a cider apple because it has either that tannin or that acidity or a mixture of both, it's going to have real flavor and complexity. And some of them might be super, super bitter, super astringent, and you would exclaim, wow, that's dry. Or some of them might be super, super fruity. And you wouldn't exclaim, wow, that's dry, but it's the same thing. And so what we are trying to do is to help people go on this journey by tasting single variety ciders to build their own palate, build their understanding of flavor, find out what style they really like. Because I think ultimately in the long run, you're going to drink more cider if you find a dry cider in a style that really suits your palate than if you're stuck just only tasting medium ciders and you can't find anything else. Because for me, in my opinion, to be honest, I get bored of medium cider because I think it doesn't have the same level of complexity. Not to say it can't be an outstanding drink, because sometimes you have one and you're like, wow, yeah, that's so pleasant, that's so easy, that's really rich and luxurious. But then you think, do I really want a second glass? And so to fill my mouth with sugar? No, I don't. So it's just the way that our culture has, on the farm, has developed, is that we like having something dry because you can keep drinking, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a single varietal. It's wild ferment. Like there's no cultured yeast added at all.
Yep.
So you're getting the absolute closest you can ever to the terroir of that single orchard, that single tree, right?
Yes.
That
yeah,
in essence. And pairing food with that, there's quite a difference, isn't there, between like a medium to a dry style. Do you have recommendations for pairing food? I know that you do enjoy cooking.
I love cooking, absolutely love it. And we've ran, with my brother Martin and I, quite a few supper clubs at the Yew Tree last year, and hopefully we'll do more in 2025. The really high acid ciders, which for us would be Foxwhelp, it would be maybe Stoke Red, maybe Kingston Black, but that's a little bit lower, or Haglow Crab, Rennet Dobre, Porter's Perfection. These kinds of varieties are wonderful when you're doing something that's got fattiness or
like pork,
or creaminess or oiliness. So if you're doing like some kind of cheesy pasta style or creamy pasta style, or you're doing some kind of fish dish, something with that acidity is wonderful. And when you have the complexity of it being fully fermented and dry, then you just have the richness from the apple rather than sugar, which you probably don't want in your dish, right? Because you've got some like a fish appetizer or a main course. Well, why would you want to have something crazy sweet pairing with that? Well, maybe you have a bespoke dish that does work with sweet, but that's what I like. So for me, one of my favorite pairings I ever did with that was I did do a creamy fish pasta with just whatever yellow label like on sale going off next day fish I could find in the supermarket. So I had just a whole bunch of different fish in there, and I had that with our new single variety Foxwhelp, and it was like a heavenly experience because the intensity of the acidity is being softened by the richness of that creamy pasta sauce, but then the fish becomes so enjoyable and so palatable when you've got the acidity to match it. So that's a classic.
Can I just stop you there, because we talk about this a lot, what goes well with like a, more kind of oily meat like pork, but there's also spices there.
Yeah.
And so it's not just as simple as putting up the dry with, pork. You have to do some kind of spices there. So is there anything that you kind of like to accentuate with a particular cider, any particular spices that are your go-to besides salt and pepper?
So with bittersweet fruit especially, we have a huge curry culture in the UK.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And for me, when you have a really brilliantly spicy curry that's got, curry powder, it's got garlic, cumin, like mustard seeds, this kind of real rich heat, and you're having that with a soft bittersweet apple like Somerset Red Streak, which is no acidity or very low acidity because it's a bittersweet. So you don't have the challenge of the heat from the spice with the acidity. You just have the depth from the spice being kind of met by the smoothness of this tannic drink. Then it's wonderful because it means it just balances the palate in a really nice way. And you have all this heat moving through the mouth and all the intricacies of the curry that then different parts of that bittersweet apple can bounce off it. So an apple like Somerset Red Streak does have a real fruitiness to it. And so if you've got like a straightforward meat curry, then classically meat curry, okay, I've got some mango chutney. Well, if you've got a really lovely fruity dry cider, then you're getting that fruitiness there in a way that's balancing it.
Food at the pub, you have pizza. There's beer there too, and people kind of classically think beer and pizza. But what ciders do you like to balance out with your pizza and enjoy?
So what I think is great about pizza is that it's a blank canvas, and you can have pizza in any style. So one of my favorite things is we have a spicy pizza at the pub that has New Year on it, and I love having something like that, a spicy pizza with my bittersweet cider, and I'll find the cider that I most fancy that day, and that's going to be a great experience for me. The other one we did at the pub that was a special bespoke pairing was we had the launch of Little Pomona's Disco Nuvo. So their fresh, young, very juicy, aromatic Discovery, which has got real good, like almost lemonade-y acidity in Discovery apples. And so our pizza chefs came up with this pizza with goat cheese on it. And then that goat cheese with that lemonade sherbet acidity in that cider, that was a really lovely pairing. And the goat cheese has also got it's got some nuts on it, I think, and it's covered in mozzarella as well. And I think it's kale. It's either kale or spinach on it as well. So it's got that.
Sounds delicious.
That lushness to it.
Sounds delicious. I mean, I hope everybody listening right now are just like I hope we've made you hungry and thirsty.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely hungry.
Yeah. So you got to visit Ross on Wye Cider and Perry Company here and experience it, because that's really what it's all about, is coming to the place where it's made, to smell the land, to see the landscape, to meet the makers, and to enjoy some very quality cider. Thank you so much, Albert, for taking time with me today.
Thanks so much, Ria. It's a pleasure to be back on Cider Chat. Thank you.
Find links to the Ross on Wye Cider and Perry Company by going to the show notes for this here episode 443 of Cider Chat, or just Google Cider Single Varietal Capital. That's the name of the title of this episode, and you know now why it was duly named as so. Well, I have a little bit of planning for the UK cider tour coming up this August. So, with that, I leave you here. This is Real Wind Caller signing off for now. Looking forward to seeing you in Ciderville.
Strange apples, bitter sharp. Strange apples, juicy and ripe. Bop, 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 ba-da-doo-doo-dop, bop, 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 ba-da-doo-doo-dop. Who wants a tannenbaum?
I want a tannenbaum.
Who wants to pull them down?
I'm gonna pull them down. Hey, 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 apples,
bittersweet. Strange apples, hanging high. Got them strange apples. Forget the pie. Strange got them strange apples. Strange apples. Strange apples. Make them pop. Pop, 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 ba-da-doo-dee-da, pop, 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 ba-da-doo-dee-da.
Who wants a tannenbaum?
I want a tannenbaum.
Who wants to pull them down?
I'm gonna pull them down. Hey, 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 apples.
Come and see.
Plenty strange apples for you and me.
Strange apples. Strange apples. Strange apples.
Make them pop. Pop, pop, pop. Ba-da-doo-doo-da. Pop, pop, pop. Ba-da-doo-doo-da. Pop, pop, pop. Ba-da-doo-doo-da. Pop, pop, pop. Pop, 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 pop.
Yeehaw!